SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light this candle.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Roger, liftoff and the clock is started.
The shuttle has cleared the tower.
Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Houston now controlling the flight of Atlantis. The space shuttle spreads its wings one final time for the start of a sentimental journey into history.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful.
Welcome back to a brand new episode of Raptors and Dragons, your home for weekly space news. This week we'll be covering Starship SN15, the launch and landing, which actually occurred around 3 hours ago. The return of Crew 1, as well as Starlink launches past and future, and as always some international news. Starship SN15 has been a topper launch pad for the past week, but due to various holdups has not gotten the chance to spread her stainless steel flaps and gotten the chance to fly. However, her time did come today when around 6:26 p.m. Eastern, SN15 lifted up from the suborbital launch pad in Starbase, Texas, quickly disappearing into the clouds and only sending limited video back to SpaceX, flying to a height of 10 kilometers before transitioning into its belly flop maneuver and obviously the flip and burn, making a successful landing, which despite a short fire at the base of the rocket, was otherwise a total success, and was the first Starship prototype to do so. With the past 4 attempted test flights ending in a fireball, seeing major improvements with this new generation of flight hardware, it is still unclear what SpaceX's plans are for SN15 and if it will fly again or not. Now, let's hand it over to Mason for a little bit of Crew 1 news.
Earlier this week, we saw the undocking of Crew 1 from the ISS. They left on Saturday at about 8:35 p.m. The astronauts on board were NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and JAXA astronaut Soichi Noguchi. Riding their Dragon capsule named Resilience, they began their journey back to Earth. They splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico at around 2:56 on Sunday. They were able to egress their capsule under an hour later, a new speed record for Crew Dragon's early career, with this being NASA's first night landing since the Apollo days.
Headed back over to Starbase, Texas.
As of the past week, SN16 has started to get her parts in order, and she's been fully stacked and topped off with a nose cone, with a likely rollout to the pad coming this week ahead of multiple pressure and static fire tests. But with the recent landing of SN15, we can expect that post-landing operations will take precedent over SN16's rollout to the pad, so maybe we can expect to see it in the coming weeks. In other Starship news, we have seen the FAA recently authorized launches for the next 3 Starships, which are SN15, 16, and 17, with 15 launching earlier today. They made these authorizations after they feel the discrepancies of the SN11 mishap investigation were cleared up, and SpaceX seems to be back in the FAA's good graces, with parts of SN17, 18, 19, and 20 having already been spotted around Starbase as they begin to take shape, as well as parts of Super Heavy Booster BN2 and BN3, as well as a third ground support tank for the orbital launch pad, which has been stacked in the assembly area. Now back to Jake for some information about the upcoming Starlink launch this Sunday.
On May 9th at 2:42 a.m., SpaceX is targeting Starlink version 1 launch 27 from SLC-40 from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. The Falcon 9 booster that will be used in flight will be booster B1051. This will be flight 10 for this particular booster. This booster supported Demo 1, which carried the Dragon 2.0 vehicle to the ISS for the first time, RadarSat Constellation, SiriusXM Satellite 7, and 6 Starlink launches. SpaceX plans on recovering the booster on Just Read the Instructions drone ship and using Sheila Bordelon to scoop the fairings out of the ocean. And in other recent news, on May 4th, SpaceX launched Starlink Mission 25 from Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, flying booster B1049. This was the 9th flight for this booster, having supported 6 Starlink launches, as well as Telstar 18V and Iridium Next, with SpaceX successfully recovering the booster on the Of Course I Still Love You drone ship and using Sheila Bordelon for the fairing recovery. Also, on April 28th, SpaceX launched Starlink 24 at 11:44 p.m. from Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and recovering the booster downrange on the Just Read the Instructions drone ship. Also fishing the fairings out of the water using Sheila Bordelon. After completing its mission, the Russian resupply capsule Progress MS-14 successfully undocked from the International Space Station on April 27th. As a way to get rid of the disposable trash, Progress capsules are filled with it and sent to be destroyed upon re-entry into the atmosphere. And now back to Mason for some more international news.
Late April 28th, we saw the launch of a Long March 5B rocket from the Weichang Space Center in China. The payload on board the Long March 5B was the new core module for China's new space station, and placing that module in orbit. However, the rocket core stage was also put into an orbit, which is planned to decay over the coming weeks and make an uncontrolled re-entry. Its significant size has led to some concern over this, however, and it could end up coming down over an inhabited area. After winning a nearly $3 billion contract to work on the human landing system for the NASA Artemis program to return humans to the moon, SpaceX's competitors have filed a challenge on the decision of NASA. As a result of the challenge, NASA has told SpaceX they must put a hold on all work it's doing with the contract until the U.S. Government Accountability Office can resolve the outstanding litigation. SpaceX will have to wait on the money, but this will likely not have any impact on the test schedule of Starships going forward. In continued news with the Ingenuity Mars helicopter, the helicopter made its fourth flight this week, flying longer and further than ever before. Because of the success of these flights, NASA has decided to extend the life of this mission, which is only meant to last for one Martian month. From now on, NASA hopes to change Ingenuity from an exploration and demonstration role to a position where it works in tandem with Perseverance rover, providing aerial observations of science targets and scouting paths for the rover to take in the future. And finally, I'm going to hand it back to Jake for some breaking Blue Origin news, as well as a result of the NASA Administrator hearing.
On May 5th, exactly 60 years after Alan Shepard's first flight in space, Blue Origin announced that they will be making their first manned mission in July on their fittingly named New Shepard rocket. The flight is currently scheduled for July 24th, the 52nd anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. The New Shepard spacecraft has now taken 15 suborbital flights and has been deemed ready for manned missions. While they have not announced who will be riding on its first flight, Blue Origin has said that they will be auctioning off one seat with the proceeds going to charity. As we mentioned in last week's episode, Bill Nelson was flying through the Senate hearing process to become NASA's next administrator, with those accumulating in his official swearing in on May 3rd, with Mr. Nelson yet to discuss his plans for how he would run the agency in either of his swearing in speeches or agency statement released later that day. Now back over to Mason for some closing remarks.
Thanks for listening to our second episode of the Raptors and Dragons podcast. We really hope you enjoyed this week's breaking news and exciting breakthroughs. Remember to like and subscribe, as it always helps. And as always, from our home to yours, we are go for launch. See you next time, fellow space nerds and Texas Tank Watchers.